So morning, everyone. I am very appreciative that everyone took the time today to jump on this call. Obviously, thanks to Ryan for setting this up. This is a great opportunity to kind of more informally discuss, Titleist specifically, some of the products, but then also open it up at the end to talk about some of the questions that you may have. And I'll start by saying, feel free to jump in and kind of raise your hand at any point if there is something that sparks your interest, maybe a follow-up question required. Want this to be kind of as engaging and informal as possible, and hope that everyone's able to take something away from the 40 or 45 minutes that we have together this morning. Some of the things that I've got kind of planned in terms of canned content, I'll talk a little bit about the Acushnet company, which is obviously the parent company of Titleist, FootJoy, Scotty Cameron, Bob Vokey wedges, and so on. I'll talk about how we go about validating our product. So it's not as simple as making a product and packaging it and getting it on the shelves. We do a lot of background work in testing and validation prior to bringing products to market. And then really the meat and potatoes of today is to talk about Titleist golf balls and which golf ball is best for your game. So feel free at this point to ask some more personal questions about your own game and maybe share some instances where you felt like, hey, the golf ball really did help me, or I could have benefited from something else in a certain scenario. And then, like I said, I've saved some time at the end for some open discussion and Q&A. So first thing, I'll share a little bit about myself, and that's obviously not me on the screen. My golf swing is not as athletic looking as our pal Justin Thomas is, but my name is Rishi Thacker. I know I've spoken to some of you individually already, but for those that I haven't had the opportunity to, very nice to meet you, and be it virtual. That's kind of the new world we live in. So my role with the company is I'm the player development and golf ball fitting representative. So certainly a mouthful there. But on the player development side, our goal is to be in touch with the highest performing Canadian athletes and have relationships with high performance schools, such as the Edge School, and then some of the colleges and universities that have elite level golf programs. And then on the golf ball fitting side, I lead all of our fitting initiatives across the country. So really the long and short there is want to make sure that everyone's playing the correct golf ball for their game. So how did we get started in the golf ball space? All the way back in 1932, Phil Young was playing a money match in Boston with a couple of his pals, came down to the 18th hole, and he struck what he thought was a really well-struck putt. He thought this golf ball should have hit the heart of the hole and dropped in. Unfortunately, the golf ball veered offline, and Phil very quickly thought, that couldn't have been my fault. It must have been the golf ball's fault. Turns out he was actually right. He had access to X-ray machinery at the time, and he took his golf ball that unfortunately he lost the match with and X-rayed it. Turns out the core of the golf ball, so that's the inside most piece of the golf ball, was off center. So on the screen and on the image there on the screen, if you look at the bottom left corner, you can see how off center some of those cores were when he first started testing golf balls. So really not fair to the player to feel like, hey, they've hit a great shot, they've made a really good swing, and the golf ball's not performing consistently. So that really sparked his interest, and that started the Acushnet company. So how was Phil Young and team able to centralize these cores? Well, the first thing he started to do was to freeze the liquid centers so that during the winding process, that the cores didn't move, expand, or contract. So I share all that just to say, hey, it is a really cool story of how the brand got started. A lot of people don't know that story. Essentially, Mr. Phil Young missed a putt, figured it couldn't have been his fault. He was right, and then started this massive company that now leads the golf space. Very quickly, early on in the process, a clear goal of uniformity was established. So every single golf ball was decided that it needed to perform the exact same way. So there was a quality assurance piece there that was very, very early and quickly defined. In 1935, it was really clear that the Acushnet company had the best performing golf ball in the market. But it was really necessary at the time to get out in the field and start to show consumers that, hey, this golf ball performs extremely consistently and more players should be using it. So in 1935, they built a mechanical golfer, hitched the mechanical golfer on the back of a big Winnebago caravan type vehicle, and drove all across the United States and started testing golf balls in front of dedicated golfers. And then fast forward to 1949, where Titleist won the golf ball count on the PGA Tour, specifically the US Open for the first time, once again in 1949, and has been the #1 ball in golf ever since. So this year will mark 72 years of being the most used golf ball at the US Open. And so the Acushnet company had a variety of golf balls leading up to the year 2000. But in the year 2000, this was really the inception of the Titleist Pro V1, which everyone obviously knows about and uses today. So in October of 2000 is the first time that Pro V1 found its way onto the PGA Tour, where 47 players decided to tee it up. And that's a big deal because, as we know, tour players don't switch products a lot of times. They wait until they really feel like they have to, or they wait until they feel like they're giving something up by not switching. So for 47 players of the 120-person field to put this golf ball in play is a big deal. Billy Andrade actually won that event, so Pro V1 user won that event at the Las Vegas, Nevada Open. And the success was so great that the company decided to move the launch date of the product up by 2 months, very quickly becoming the #1 selling golf ball in the industry. And then the far right there, you can see USA Today, the ball that's turning golf upside down. So a really iconic moment there for a golf ball to find its way at the USA Today publication. So that's just a quick kind of background of the Acushnet company and the Titleist golf ball. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we go about validating product, how what we do prior to packaging product and shipping it out to our customers and high performance players. So the first thing we do is we take a look at what we call our pyramid of influence. So you can see at the top of the pyramid is the worldwide professional tours. Very important to note that even though we could all agree that the PGA Tour is the largest tour, kind of the big show, we do spend a lot of time, effort, and money on LPGA Tour, Symetra Tour, Ladies European Tour, and then on the men's side also the Men's European Tour, Mackenzie Tour here in Canada, and a number of other feeder tours, because those tours consist of a lot of really, really great players. So when we talk about tour or tour influence or tour usage, we're not just talking about the PGA Tour. Once we made sure that the worldwide professional tour players have the right product for their game, we then go and spend some time with our PGA and LPGA teaching professionals, coaches, instructors. So guys like Ryan, making sure that, hey, they have everything they need to be great influencers, but also to make sure that they have what they need for their own personal game. We then take a look at some of the best players within each region, in our case, within each province, and certainly sub-regions from there, just to make sure that, hey, all the best players and all the dedicated golfers that exist, not just the best performing golfers, have the ability to access these products and speak to someone that works for the company that can help them make a decision based on what they need for their own game. And then at the bottom, the dedicated golfer. So this is really any golfer that plays 25 rounds of golf a year, takes golf lessons, keeps a handicap, and we got a pretty defined kind of description of what a dedicated golfer is. So that's how we go about bringing product to market, is we make sure that we've checked every box within the pyramid of influence. And then, of course, we then support all of the athletes that we're in touch with, and we call it proving it at all levels. So keep in mind, these numbers here are from 2019, pre-pandemic. but all of these numbers have been trending in the right direction. So some of these numbers have actually increased into 2021. So the worldwide ball count, 73%. So 73% of all players that play on any tour play a Titleist golf ball. On the PGA Tour, 72%. LPGA Tour, 80%. And then from 2019, the Canadian Men's Am, 80% of the golfers use the Titleist product. And then the Canadian Women's Am, a really strong number there, 93% of the golfers use a Titleist product. I'll just direct your attention to the numbers across the bottom. And what you can see is just how far ahead we are, in relation to the nearest competitor. So really, really strong numbers there. And really important to note that when you get to the amateur level at the Canadian Men's Am and Canadian Women's Am, those players aren't paid any money to play any brand of product. So this is just those players making a decision based on their own game with high performance in mind. All right, I'm going to talk next about our premium lineup of golf balls. So obviously Pro V1 and Pro V1X are our two flagship products, the highest performing golf balls in the game. And we're going to get into what makes them high performance products. So Pro V1 is the greatest combination of speed, spin, and feel. So to simplify it, for all golfers who prioritize performance above everything else, the golf ball that they should be using is Pro V1, or at least starting with Pro V1. Here's a cool image of a cross section of what goes into the Pro V1. So you've got the big circle there on the far left, that's the core. And then the more transparent kind of half circle there is the casing layer. And then where it looks like more of a golf ball is the cover. So a three-piece product in Pro V1. And so don't want to get too technical, but if there are technical questions afterwards, I can certainly answer them. And then you've got Pro V1X. So the big difference between Pro V1 and Pro V1X is the X is going to fly higher. So for players that may need higher flight because they struggle getting the ball airborne or as high as they would like to see it, they should be playing a Pro V1X. With higher flight, keep in mind, comes increased stopping power. So if the ball gets up to a higher peak height, we know that it's going to come out of the air at a steeper angle, which is going to help the player stop the ball on the green a little bit more. Another picture there, quick cross section of the Pro V1X golf ball. You'll notice the big difference there is that red circle right in the middle. So that's what we call our dual core. So the core is actually made up of two pieces. And then you still have the casing layer and the cover. The dual core certainly assists with the higher flight, the increased spin, and the additional stopping power. So once again, if there are more technical questions, happy to answer them. And then for some of you guys may have heard of Pro V1X Left Dash. So we call these CFTs or custom for tour. So this is a product that was initially made special for a certain type of player. This is for the type of player that still requires some additional height, but maybe not as much spin. So if you get the opportunity to go through a golf ball fitting, this would be one of the golf balls that your fitter would ask you to try. And there's a number of performance pieces that go into it, as well as what the golfer's preferences are. But Pro V1X Left Dash, less than 2% of golfers fit into this golf ball, and we only have about a handful of tour players using it currently. But it certainly has a reason for being, and strongly urge everyone to give it a try if you can get your hands on it. And then the final golf ball within the premium lineup is AVX. And AVX stands for Alternative to V and X. So this golf ball is the opposite of Pro V1X in that it flies the lowest and spins at the lowest rate. So for a player that hits it way too high, needs to bring that ball flight down, or struggles with too much spin and sees too much shot curvature, this ball can certainly help them. So if there's one slide on here that is, I would say, the most important, it would be this one here, because this slide does a really good job of breaking down the differences between all four of these products. So if you're ever unsure of which golf ball you should be playing, this is a really good image to follow. Because if you start right in the middle with Pro V1, you'll see that it says optimal flight and spin for the most amount of golfers with a very soft feel. And if you notice you need to hit the golf ball higher, climb the ladder and go up to Pro V1X. If you notice that you're hitting it too high, you can go down the ladder and go to AVX. I know Ryan has this image in one of the booklets that's on site there, but I can also share this as a JPEG with Ryan to pass along as well. And then when we talk about golf ball fitting and education, so something that, I think we don't talk about enough, because everyone gets really excited to get fit for their golf clubs, which is fantastic. But keep in mind that the golf ball is the only piece of equipment that you're using on every single shot. So if you're not using a consistent golf ball, if you're not using one model for every single shot you hit, you're doing your game a disservice. So the first thing we do when taking players through a golf ball fitting is we do a player interview or an assessment. So we want to talk to the player about what they look for in a product. We want to talk to the player about their preferences. Do they like playing a colored golf ball? Do they like playing a soft feeling golf ball or a more firm golf ball? From there, we'll clearly define some objectives. A lot of players, their goal is to hit it further. Everyone wants to chase distance, which I think is extremely important, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. At the end of the day, we're looking to help players play better golf and shoot lower scores. Once we've gone through the assessment or player interview piece, we then take the player out onto the golf course, or we simulate a golf course on the driving range. And we actually start at the green. The first thing we're going to do is have the player hit some putts, hit some chip shots, and then go back to the fairway and hit some approach shots. When it comes to driver and tee shots, it's extremely important that you can get off the tee successfully. But keep in mind that you're only going to hit your driver about 12 to 14 times a round, whereas you're going to hit approach shots, chip shots, putters, sometimes 50, 60 plus times a round. So we want to fit the golf ball to what's going to help you score better, as opposed to just hit it further. The other thing I'll share is all of our golf balls, every single one that I shared with you guys on the screen here, they all fly within 4 yards of each other. So it's not like one golf ball is drastically longer than another. And that's why we focus on overall scoring. And then the final thing is, once we've made a recommendation or a fitting, we then ask the player to validate the product exactly the same way we would ask a PGA or LPGA Tour player to do. We ask them to take the golf ball out on the golf course and give it a fair shot for about 36 holes, and making sure that they're trying to hit all different types of shots with that ball. Because once again, it is the one piece of equipment that you use on every single tee shot. And the final thing I'll share on this slide is very important that once you decide to play a certain golf ball, that you stick with it. So even if it is a different company's golf ball, that's completely fine. We just want to make sure that players are using one ball consistently, regardless of the conditions and where you're playing. I always think a cool story is, hey, when the PGA Tour players play at Augusta National versus when they go down and play at St. Andrews for the Open, they're still using the same golf ball, even though conditions and weather, golf course undulation is all very, very different, but they're still using the same product. Next, I'm going to share some of the tools that exist, that are very easy to access to help you all get fit for the right golf ball. So the first piece is going to be our golf ball selector tool. So this is a series of about 5 questions. And it can be found on Titleist.ca. It's going to ask you questions about your game, your strengths, your weaknesses, whether you think you need to hit it higher or lower, And then it'll talk to you about some of your preferences. Once again, do you like to play a colored golf ball? Do you like a firmer feeling product, etc.? Once you've reached the end of the selector tool, it's going to recommend a golf ball for you and then provide an alternative option. Once again, we can tell you what we think you should play, but at the end of the day, golf is played on the golf course. So we ask you to take the products out to the course and validate them on your own time and hitting the shots that you would normally hit. Another really cool tool that exists is our golf ball fitting consultations. So COVID-19 has forced us to obviously adapt and change to the times. So what we're doing now is we've got a couple golf ball fitting employees that are sitting at their computers for about 8 hours a day each and conducting virtual consultations. So what does that look like? It's basically a 15 to 20 minute long conversation about the player's game, once again, what they look for in a product, and then we make a recommendation, and then we actually ship them a couple samples for them to take out on the golf course and try. So if that initiative interests anyone here, feel free to reach out to me or go right on Titleist.ca and sign up for a consultation. Really, really cool opportunity to talk one-on-one with a Titleist employee, a Titleist fitter, and talk about your own game. And the really cool thing about it is it doesn't just have to be about golf balls. If you have a question about your driver or question about what wedge bounce and grind works best for me, we can take you through all that virtually. And that kind of brings me to the end of what I had to share in terms of the screen. But I just wanted to kind of quickly open it up if there's any questions or anybody has unsure about what ball they should be playing for their own game.
Turn you off mute there. Hold on one sec. Can you hear me, Rich?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. Some of the guys that are experimenting and stuff, the couple good questions that come up every once in a while is that it's more of a preference of a ball flight versus someone telling you how to ball flight. So here in Alberta, obviously we have we're a lot like Texas, where we have a lot of windy days and we have elevation, we have all sorts of stuff. Do you think that the golf balls perform differently at different elevations? And what would you recommend for someone that plays technically in Alberta versus someone that plays on the West Coast at sea level? And does that really, you think that factors?
Yeah, really good question. So without a doubt, golf balls are going to travel at different distances at different altitudes. So that's why when a tour player shows up to an event on a Monday or a Tuesday, the first thing they're doing is going to the driving range, setting the TrackMan down or whatever launch monitor they use, and figuring out how much further or shorter that golf ball is going to fly. But in terms of the launch conditions and the TrackMan metrics that we look at, the only major difference that we see is carry distance. So certainly there's not going to be any difference in launch angle or spin rate. So if you should be playing a Pro V1 golf ball and then you go somewhere at high altitude, you're still going to be a Pro V1 golf ball user. You just have to get used to the different distance. Now, in terms of do we see patterns of players on the West Coast versus East Coast playing different models? Absolutely. The windier conditions call for a lower ball flight, obviously, to keep it out of the wind. But we still like to take a one-on-one approach to fitting each and every golfer.
Yeah, for sure. Questions, guys?
Do the different models of the Pro V1, Pro V1X, and all those, do they have different dimple patterns on the outside of the ball, or are they all the same?
Yeah, awesome question. Really good question. So every single one of our products have a totally unique dimple design, dimple count, and aerodynamics package. And so before going deeper into that, I'll kind of make the idea of dimples on a golf ball a little simpler to understand. So the way I think about dimples on a golf ball is like the wings on an airplane. So essentially, the wings on an airplane keep the aircraft airborne and prevents it from falling out of the sky. So same thing with the dimples on a golf ball. So with that being said, we can all understand that the different dimple design, dimple count, and aerodynamics package allow for the golf ball to fly at different heights, come out of the air at different angles, etc. So every single one of the golf balls, including our most price point brand in Pinnacle, they all have extensive dimple design research and R&D that goes into it. And so really, really good question. And dimple design is very important. In fact, aerodynamics is its own department in our golf ball section of the business.
Thank you.
Rishi, how do you think temperature affects golf balls?
Another really good question. So we've done really extensive testing on how temperature affects not just performance of the golf ball, but storage as well. So, we've seen players leave their golf bag in the garage during the winter. And obviously the extreme temperatures are going to have effects on the materials that go into a golf ball, and golf clubs for that matter. It's no different than your vehicle taking a little bit longer to get warm in the wintertime, if I could kind of make a comparison there. So the suggestions that we have are to store your golf equipment, golf products at moderate temperatures, anywhere between kind of that 12 to 30 degree number. As soon as you get down into the single digits, certainly below zero, you're going to run into, some performance changes. But we've done some testing on that, and it's not like the product is no longer good. It just doesn't perform exactly to spec.
And what are your thoughts, Rishi, on we ordered here at the school, I ordered from you a whole 6 dozen of practice versions of the balls, because I'm a huge believer in practicing what you play with, because putting and chipping, especially with the ball you're not used to, especially if they're just basic range balls, totally different feel, totally different roll, totally different feedback off the club. But what are your thoughts on making sure you always practice with what you play with?
Yeah, that's extremely important, right? Because if we think about what the purpose of practice is to simulate the real thing, right? It's to try and get a feel of what it's going to be like under competition scenarios. So everything you can do to simulate what it's going to be like during competition is going to be extremely important. The best players in the world on the men's and women's side, they both, when they go to the range, they don't use range balls. They're using their specific golf ball. And we're starting to see golf courses across the country do the same thing, where they're investing a little bit more in premium product to practice with. So I think the move of getting practice Pro Vs or it doesn't have to be Titleist, right? Like if it's whatever golf ball you use, I strongly believe like you need to practice exactly with the product that you're going to go out and play. And then when you hit shots, you can start to learn to expect what the ball is going to do, and there's less moving parts and less question marks out there on the golf course.
So we have a question here from Barb, who's just wrote it in. She says, I'd love to know the path he took to get this job. Post-secondary study area and where. I'm sure all the kids there would like to know. He has a cool job. This can wait till the end, but I am now a Titleist player. I was whatever I had in my bag player till he convinced me something Tavari's dad couldn't do. So more of a personal question, but why don't you give us your career breakdown in a nutshell? Yeah,
absolutely. So thanks, Barb, for the question. Glad that you're a loyal Titleist user now. That's awesome to hear. For me specifically, I always knew that I wanted to be involved in golf at some level. Obviously, as a young teen, I'll say a half decent player, but certainly not good enough to get down to the NCAA level or anything like that. But loved golf competition, and then got an opportunity to volunteer at a golf course. My parents would drop me off kind of first thing in the morning, and I would fight them to go home. I'd want to live there if I could. And that's kind of where it all started for me. Realized that, hey, I fell in love with the operation of golf, the business side of golf. Was an assistant pro and associate pro for a number of years at a private club just outside of Toronto in Guelph, Ontario. And then from there, I realized, hey, I wanted to learn a little bit more about how a club works and not just the golf side. So took an opportunity at the same club to become a clubhouse manager, and really got entrenched in the food and beverage piece, the weddings, the events, kind of what made a club tick and what made the financials of a private club make sense. But really quickly realized that I not only wanted to have a great career, but also wanted to have a strong personal life and family life. And, if you're working weddings and dinner service, et cetera, when everyone else is out enjoying themselves, you're unfortunately working still. So decided to pivot a little bit and took a job with Titleist as a club fitter. So I was always passionate about the brand. So I was lucky enough to get an opportunity with Titleist and kind of built our fitting program up here in Canada, and then was given an opportunity to jump over to the golf ball side of the business, which is our biggest department at Titleist. So took on that opportunity, and then just in the last 16 months was given an opportunity, in addition to the golf ball piece, to work with the best players in Canada and be able to provide those players a level of product support. Barb, I'll say you're right. I am very fortunate and certainly remind myself that I have a cool job all the time. And golf's in a really cool spot where we've got a lot of new and growing interest. And it's our job as kind of ambassadors of the game to keep people engaged in golf. And for anyone that potentially down the road is looking for a career in golf, whether that's on the green grass side of the business at a golf course, or the manufacturer side with a company like Titleist, I would highly recommend it. It's very rewarding. The fact that I get to wake up every day and talk about golf and golf balls and high performance golfers and athletes is really awesome.
Just a quick question. Well, actually I had two, but just thought you could maybe spend a minute just on the history of FootJoy and maybe how those two companies and or brands maybe came together. Just a little bit on that side. Yeah.
So FootJoy is a really, really cool kind of subsection of the brand where it's got long-standing history, obviously in the footwear business, and no different than golf ball, where the amount of R&D, and work that goes into products before bringing them to market is second to none. And so that same mindset exists across the various different brands underneath the Acushnet company. I'll be honest, I spend about 90% of my time on the Titleist side, obviously with the golf ball piece being such a big part of what we do. But with players, there's certainly a lot of FootJoy conversations. We are doing one of our biggest initiatives going into 2021 is making sure that more players have access to FootJoy products. So you'll notice that when you look at the lineup of FootJoy shoes and clothing, there's certainly high performance products that are priced appropriately. But I think we're doing a better job now of getting in touch with players that maybe more price point sensitive, and making sure that we have really, really great best in class products in each category. The FootJoy part of the business is really interesting and fun. Obviously soft goods in shoes and clothing, completely different animal. But yeah, no, it's a really big part of what we do.
No, it's great. And I've always said that the feet are like one of the most neglected things talked about in the golf swing. So it's important that you've got good shoes. Last question was, maybe could you just tell us the basics around the Titleist player development program that we've got a few of the players in, but some of your plans of what's coming down the line with that?
Yeah, I'm very happy to talk about that. So player development or next gen support has existed with Titleist for almost 2 decades. But I've been in the role now for like I said, just about 16 months. And in that time, we've really determined that this is going to be the future of golf, the future of our business. So what player development is an opportunity for high performance athletes to have a relationship directly with the brand, which is a little bit unique because a lot of times golf companies will just focus on the relationships with their retail partners or golf courses. But we feel like, hey, if we can have a strong consumer connection, it will go a long way to help the player perform at the best of their ability. So as it stands right now, there's about 160 golfers within the player development program in many different capacities. But it ranges from golfers as young as 12 or 13 years old who have very quickly decided that they want to play golf at the highest level for the rest of their lives, or at least attempt to play golf at the NCAA or NAIA level. So we provide I'll say an introductory level of support to them. But then support ranges all the way up to players that are on the National Golf Canada program, where those players have access to full product line support. And then to take it a step further, we also have great relationships with players on the tour. So Canadian players like Brooke Henderson, who just picked up a 10th LPGA Tour win. She's been a loyal Pro V1 user, since her early days at Smith Falls. And then guys like Corey Connors, who's a loyal Pro V1 user as well, and is playing fantastic golf. It seems like he's in the top 10 every single week. So yeah, that's kind of the long and short of the program. And so we try to do a really good job of finding elite level talent, and giving them all an opportunity to be affiliated with the brand.
And so do we. We're working on it. Any other questions, guys? Declan, come over here. Just say it in there.
What is Titleist doing compared to like other brands to get them like so far ahead, like with the percentages that you showed us with like the pros using it and like just other golfers worldwide?
Yeah, another really, really good question. So I think the first thing I'll say is, when a strategy or a go forward plan is designed, by the leadership team, we do a really good job of sticking to that and not straying away from that, even though at times it feels like trends may be going in opposite directions. So what I mean by that is, instead of pouring all of our additional funds into marketing and advertising, we tend to put the majority of our funds into research and development, because we are a product company. We are a packaged goods company. And so as good as your marketing can be, and we are doing a better job of that now, but ideally, you're not going to get a return customer unless the product performs at the top level. So that's really been the reason why the product has remained at the top. And then the other really, really big piece is customer service. So seldom do companies provide an opportunity for golfers to speak directly with employees. A lot of other companies, educate golf pros and educate retailers to then filter that information directly to the consumer. Where I think we take more of a one-on-one approach. We're more than happy to talk to golfers across the country about their game specifically. So we do try and have a kind of a leveled up customer service experience as well.
No, that's great. Anyone else questions? Jason? No, good. Oh, Mitch got a question.
What's the difference exactly between your Titleist practice balls versus your Pro V1s that we use?
Great question. The quick answer is absolutely nothing. The practice Pro Vs are typically prior generation product. So what you're going to get is like a 2019 version or a 2017 version of Pro V1 or Pro V1X. Now, I know that in the past there's been some misconceptions that some of the golf balls that are stamped with practice are defective or something's wrong with them. If there's anything that comes off the line that doesn't perform the way it's supposed to be, it gets thrown out, unfortunately. So just know that the practice product that you're using are complete products that, you know, are just prior generation. Another avenue that we get practice products from are at every single LPGA and PGA Tour event. We ship brand new Pro V1 and Pro V1Xs for them to use on the driving range. All of the excess product that doesn't get hit comes back to us, and we put them in practice packaging.
Oh, that's good to know. Very cool. Any other questions overall? No, we're good. Well, Rishi, I mean, thank you so much. This was really awesome, and it's really appreciated that you do this for the program. Oh, wait, we might have one question. Thanks so much. Barb just saying thanks by chat there. But yeah, all the players are really excited, and you know, all the support that we get from you guys so far, and especially on the delivery ends of things. I know the industry is booming right now, so it's been great to have you on board and getting us off to the right start with the program. I really appreciate everything.
Absolutely. Hey, just before I quickly sign off here, just want to thank everybody again for taking the time. You know, talk about golf, Titleist, golf balls. If ever there's any questions or anybody wants to chat about their own game, please feel free to ask Ryan for my phone number or email. More than happy to have some follow-up conversations on your own games.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Take care, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you.